Okay, so having talked about Padlet and what we've done, what we'd like to do, we've got quite a lot to get through, having had a substantial chat about recordings and copyright and stuff. But I think it's good that you know this sort of background, so that you know what's involved, and also it's for your own peace of mind to know that, for instance, in a class like this where you are quite, talkative and interactive, which is good, that it's not going to be anybody other than the group who's going to actually hear what you have to say. Yeah. Hi, Svetlana. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at Padlet to look at our peach blossom. Somebody just put something up on there. So we've got a couple of peach blossom incarnadine studies. Then we've got the green one, which you can see where I've got to with my green one when I start to turn it lustre, and then it's on its way to something else. And then we're going to start the black exercise, and I have a different way of starting the black this time, as you will have gathered by the email that I sent out.
Yep.
So let's have a look at the Padlet. Oh, and Shirley sends her apologies. She's sick today. Okay, so here we go.
Wow.
So that's just, let's have a brief overview. So that's my green process. And we have Heather's green process. Of course, we saw that last fortnight.
Yeah.
Whereas this one from Ruth is, I don't know if it's moved on from there much, Ruth, or whether it's still at that point.
Well, I didn't know how much more to take after I put the red and yellow in.
That's Shirley's, which she hasn't added anything else. Eva, who in Croatia, she's one of the people doing it via recording, of course, of being in a different country. So hasn't got very far on that. Then we have Francoise, you've put yours up?
Only the green.
Yep. So there we go, getting deeper and deeper. Ellen, we have yours there.
There's a wonderful photo there of the shadow.
Yes.
But I've got two different greens. Yeah, two different green paintings. I decided to start again.
Oh, okay.
So there's two different green paintings there. So it's good that we'll use one for black and one will stay green.
Okay, yeah. And then we have our incarnadine.
Oh gosh, I've come a lot further than that now.
So, oh, Heather, yours is, yes, I just rearranged yours, Heather, about.
That's all right.
So we could see them all in a line. So let's just talk about the incarnadine. How we can see here, Ellen, you say you've gone further than that now?
Yeah.
And Ruth?
Yep.
Further?
No, that's the third version till I could come to terms with it all. So I haven't gone much further than that.
And Diane, we've got yours there.
Amazing.
Well, I didn't feel comfortable, of course, until I could jump to pulling out an image. It made me feel happy to do that. So I just thought I'd go with it. Yeah, okay. And it was fun. Yeah, thank you.
It looks amazing. I blew that up. I made it big the other day. Just the image is incredible.
Is it? Oh.
Well, what I saw. I mean,
I can see it now. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I pulled it right out to have a look at. Wow.
Well, it's got that. It's just the method of painting is so. I don't know. It just allows the image to come forth. It's great. Yeah, and I've gone further than that a little bit. Introduced a bit of greens as in the background.
I see that. Yeah. Yeah.
Somehow it's been yeah, that's part of my nature, I suppose. I had to get something that I could recognise, or that told me to come, you know, come in and get me out of there.
And Heather, you've just added yours. There we are.
Yeah. I found it quite a struggle. I didn't quite know. I didn't feel like I was getting any connection with something else other than the layer of the black or the layer of the really light pinky colour.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, geez, I don't even know that I'm doing the right thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. What I'm just interested at the paper you've used.
Yeah.
Is that your usual paper?
Yes.
Like a pastel paper?
No, it's a X number of percentage cotton, 25% cotton watercolor paper, whatever the 300 GSM or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, it must just be the angle and the light or something, because it looks
maybe. Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, so tell me, how did you, we've just heard Heather, how did people find this exercise? Did you feel you could connect to it? Did you feel you could come to an experience of what what was being suggested? I mean, last week I talked about it as being, it's not only is it the living image of the soul, but it's coming towards, we can't say it is, but it's coming towards the colour or the experience of the colour of the etheric.
That's the thing that got me to that one. And it was the reverse of, otherwise something would form that was a figure or something. So for me, this last one came by itself quite quickly over the last couple of days. And I sort of mean that. It was almost like painting in space, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it was over the very original one that we did in class, which I threw on the ground thinking, well, I haven't got it, you know. I picked it up and just let it go. Now, where it went, I had in my mind all the time the movements of the etheric.
Okay.
And I was trying to avoid creating a body.
Did you literally throw it on the ground?
Well, I've got this habit up here, and when I want to make some space, I throw things down. Okay. So it literally did, right. And I rescued it.
I thought maybe you slammed it down on the ground.
Well, not quite, no, but I mean, I thought, oh, well, this is what is this, especially black? I mean, was just horrible. So once I stopped all of that, and lots of things had happened, and a week went by, and I slept on it several nights and had some common sense come into it, but it just worked.
Okay.
So whether it's what I'm supposed to do with you, but the process of coming to that beautiful peach blossom, of remembering what we were doing this for, was fine.
Somebody else?
Yeah, for me it was, and still is, a very, very slow process. And it's always work. I mean, you know, it's interesting looking at this earlier one that's up on the Padlet at the moment. That's where the darkness side, the black side, takes over, but then you can see the white shining through, but the middle, the red is lost, the pink is lost. So I feel like I'm doing this whole journey with, you know, between the light and the dark polarity. One takes over. Have I left enough room? Oh, have I left enough room for the white? Oh, is the dark taking over, or is there enough now? Oh, and wow, where did the pink go? And it's just, I wonder if I'll ever get anywhere but just with it forever. Yeah.
Fiona, can you make them big when people talk about their painting?
Sure.
Yeah, well, that's an early one. Yeah.
Okay, I tend to forget that a lot of you, some of you anyway, are looking on your iPads or your phones or something.
Yeah.
That's got, you know, where it's very, very early on, and it's just when it's moved into the sort of the duskiness side, and then other times it moves, you think, oh, the pink's just overtaken. I really need to, and other times you think, I haven't left enough space and breathing space for the white. And I'm just doing that continuously. And I think, oh, well, this could go on for the rest of my life.
Yeah. But that's an interesting comment, because that, I would say, is not what normally happens in you. Like when we did the nature paintings, you couldn't say with this painting, I could just go on. This process seems endless, because you're coming to a certain place, and at a certain place you just say, oh, enough. Yeah. But here, it's like the green for me. You keep going and you keep going, and yes, in terms of the level of saturation, it may get too black or too red and too dense, but you're not going to feel like it's something that's got even so much a beginning and an end. It's just like this, oh, we just keep going and going. It's almost like the nature of the etheric, of something that really doesn't have a fixed form or shape. And this is the same with green. The green has a similar quality until you start turning it lustre. It just has this sense of certain kind of endlessness. It doesn't have that strong sense of red, something has happened, an event has happened, or yellow, which will just keep taking you out. But it's just like, it really does take you into a different space. And it is this is where we see the nature of the image colours. We have what you're expressing is the experience of the image colours. Anybody else want to share their experience of peach blossom?
I'll just say that I totally agree with Ellen, with that experience of too much black. Oh, the black's taken over, the pink's taken over, where's the white? That was really something that I could really relate to out of my experience of it too.
I agree. I would say the same thing. I had exactly the same feeling, but I took some photos right at the beginning, and when it was wet, it looked like
we've lost the sound.
You've lost the sound?
Oh, you're coming and going.
Yeah, it says that my connection is unstable, so I'll just keep it like that without talking.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Somebody else? Anyone else?
So again, for me, I reiterate that I enjoy. I did get a sense of the etheric, because the figure itself was so without boundaries. It sort of kept changing shape and morphing, and I was able to work with it, of course, as we do in this sort of painting, without edges or straight lines or that sort of thing. So I enjoyed that, the movement of it. It seemed to have a lot of movement for me. And
I think it's interesting to see with the different ones, that sense of how, I mean, of course, the movement partly comes with your, Diane, because of your smaller brushstroke compared to Ellen. Yeah?
Yeah.
But nevertheless, there is that sense in both of them of something that is actually shifting, just as one has under the skin, if you can see it, that sort of the movement of life. I think it has got a bit black, yours, Diane.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it captures something of what we're trying to work towards. I mean, at a certain point, you know that although we said it's something you could keep going and keep going, at a certain point it will get, one colour will get too dark. Yeah. I mean, for instance, in mine, if I had kept equal amounts of black red and white, as soon as when it starts to become more physical, then it's then, oh, I've lost it. I actually started to bring in a tiny little bit of very, very pale yellow. I felt that it needed something else. And as you say, I also started to put, I felt the need to have black and white completely just on without red on it. So one of the things that's particularly, it's like, this is not a colour where we can say, yes, now I know incarnadine, now I know peach blossom. Because it's not a colour that, according to Rudolf Steiner, that we yet perceive. We're only on the very edge of it. And this is exactly why it's an image colour. I mean, who knows in another 1,000 years, if somebody's, writing a book on colour from this perspective, incarnadine may no longer be an image colour. Yeah? Our consciousness might have changed. Our perception might have changed. So, as I've said before, according to Steiner, there are still 5 colours which we don't, on the spectrum, we don't yet perceive.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing I think that's interesting, to not just interesting, but to us to think about, is that when we looked at the green, when you look at the lectures and it says, let's look at Shirley's, because she's got a very, very calm green one, very green, calm one there. This one, just open that up. That, whereas we have in green represents the lifeless image of the living. So we don't perceive the living, but the image of it. In nature, what we see is the image of life.
Put the heat on.
In the incarnadine, what we see is the image of the soul, but it's also the colour of life. Do you see there we've got a metamorphosis there? We've got not a metamorphosis, we've got a transition. So green is not life, is not the living, but it's the image of the living. Peach blossom is the living, but it's the image of the soul. So in the second lecture of the colour lectures, it starts off talking about this whole process. I don't want to go into this yet because I thought we'll look at this at the end of the image colours, where it talks about if the soul is, if the soul is the shadow thrower and the spirit is the illuminant. Yeah, this is it's a much more conceptual way of looking at the image colors at the beginning of the second lecture, and it's got a, you've got to sort of try and think what's he talking about, the image, the illuminating, the shadow, but it does give this interesting picture. But we'll come back to that. You might want to read it, but we won't discuss it. I'd like to do black and white first. So let's just go, if no one's got anything else, any other comments to make about the incarnadine? Let's just then go to, so hardly anyone other than me and Ruth have put up our adding lustre colours to the green. But let's just, well, okay, Ellen did as well.
Yeah, except for my shadow.
Yep.
Both of mine.
So let's just talk about that. What was that like?
Oh, that was wonderful. It was that's why I didn't finish much, because it ended up reminding me of Monet's water lilies.
Okay.
So I thought, oh, well, look, if I've managed Monet's water lilies, I think I'll stop. Joke. it was yeah, it was very satisfying, Fiona, to be able to bring those colours in. But if I was being careful, I'd be careful what I did with the red.
Yes, yes. So you can see on mine what happens when
Yeah,
you get lots of red.
Yeah. I mean, yours is beautiful and you know what you're doing, but I didn't, so there's a difference.
But as it says, I started to take the painting into beyond the exercise.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's true.
Another direction.
Yep.
So that was just because I actually started to prepare it for today's class.
Okay.
But really, I think anybody else want to share their experience of adding the lustre colours to the green?
I also found it really wonderful and a wonderful experience to do. It's like worlds of potential happens every time you add something, and the green can become something. Then it was like you went, that's where we're at. Yeah, something like that, some feeling like that. As soon as you brought a different colour. Yeah, it's interesting. I think it went. I mean, I don't know if this is correct, but just this feeling that the green was this space that had potential, but it didn't go anywhere. Then, as soon as you brought in the image colours, even just really lightly, you went, this is nature, this is the world, this is what it really is, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And somebody else was about to say something, but I don't know who it was. Somebody else was about to make a comment about adding lustre to their green. No?
Yes, yes, it was me that started, but I'm not sure if it's going to come. You know, whether my voice is coming out. That's all.
It is coming out. So tell us.
All right. Yes. Well, I felt exactly the same way as Ellen. It was a reflection of nature. I mean, when we look at green, you know, within nature, we see the green, but as soon as there is a bit of light, for example, with a bit of yellow coming on, there is life that happens.
Yeah.
Yes, life happens. Or if it's even a dash of pink or red with a little flower, the whole everything, and that's what I felt when I tried painting those colors into it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So there's actually some things coming up here, which I'm going to talk about in a second. If anyone else got like to share their experience of adding the lustre to the green? Nope. Okay. One of the things is that if you really want to, if you're painting a plant and you're painting a green stem and green leaves, generally you will have the experience, depending partly on the green you use, that it has a certain image quality. It looks dead. It doesn't have life in it. It's not just because it's a painting rather than the real thing. But you will find that as soon as if you put a little bit of red behind the green, the plant becomes literally alive. Yeah? That life of the etheric starts to appear. And then the other thing that certainly Rudolf Steiner suggests, and it's always worth bearing this in mind, is that when you're painting the plant world, or be it trees or anything like this, and we did this in the last course. I can't remember whether I consciously discussed it or not. but when we were doing the summer trees and the fruiting trees, that what he suggests is that if you actually paint the leaves and the trees darker green than you want, and then you bring streaming light around it and across it and immediately lifts it into life. Yeah? So putting these luster colours in, and this is what he says in his kind of lectures about green, to really be able to stand it, you actually have to make green, you have to redeem green's image nature by bringing it into luster, by adding luster colours. You have to make its nature luster, shining. And you do that by bringing in, one way is to bring in the luster colours, yeah? So that light that you experienced is that you felt, oh, what a relief, is that suddenly it was like a beginning, you know, it's like you're waiting to begin and you're waiting to begin and you're painting green and painting green. And it's all like that tension or that moment or that extended time before the curtain's raised on a play or a musical performance or something like that. And then as soon as you add in your red or your green or in your blue, it's like, oh, now the performance begins, yeah? Now something starts to happen. The other thing is what I'm hearing from you all, but also with the incarnadine, and is that need you all experienced in some way or other, whether it was by adding the luster colour or by bringing it more to form or something like that, that need to actually feel present in the picture, in the painting. You might say to literally incarnate into it, to have your ego, as we say, you know, the ego presence in it. And this is a really important thing to think about, because this is something we're going to be looking at today with black. Because one of the things certainly in therapy of why wet on wet, very painting colours, no matter what the colours are, very, 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 very watery and just swimming along in them, is not necessarily, depending of course on what the therapy's for, but for adults generally is just not appropriate, because it lifts the ego out from the painting, and you cannot sort of be in there in the painting, so to speak. If you want to bring through therapy somebody into the world, to ground them in the world, then you need to work. You can do it, as I've said, you can do it in certain ways by bringing in certain colours, but you know, something like a lovely rich warm brown will help you feel yourself on the earth, or the red will bring you into, oh, now I'm present here, I can experience myself here in the painting. But it's also something that points to bringing structure. So when, for instance, Diane, you want to bring it into form, or somebody else, you know, that wanting to bring something into form, it's wanting to bring structure and getting it to, you know, it's almost like let's mold it in some way. Let's give it some sort of skeleton or bones. And this is where composition, creating composition comes in. How to bring composition into something. And I just want to say, before we go into the black, is that the way I've done the green and the incarnadine exercise with you is only one way of doing it, yeah? It's not the way, it's just one way. I'm sure you realise that, but there are other ways. And the way we're going to do the black today is a very particular way, and I'm going to suggest in the next 2 weeks before our next class is that you also experiment with another way of doing it. But so just so you realise, we're not in the class here looking at this is how something is done, but rather let's explore what kind of experience we can have out of working in this way, and how does that, so it's much more that exploratory, you might call it a research process, but it's also making us as artists be open to what comes to meet us from the painting, as opposed to always wanting to superimpose a fixed idea on it. And it helps us become more creative, often in ways that we don't expect. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to move to our black. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring black to my picture.
Good job.
I mean, it's already quite advanced, mine. In a way, I actually wondered if I got one or two other ones here, but probably mine's a little bit too already advanced. It's too advanced into composition. But yeah, anyway, that's how it is. So, but the other thing that I thought this could be an advantage is that it's sufficiently dark that you can actually see it.
Right.
Yeah, rather than me painting and you all sitting there going, yeah, can't see it.
Yep.
So I'm going to mix up. Oh, I know what I'm going to do first. I'm just going to switch cameras, and I have to remember to switch audio as well. Just before we get into the black and I get my paints out, I just want to turn the light on. Draw your attention to certain things that I tend to do in my certain things I tend to do in my painting, which is kind of a particular way I tend to take a lot of paintings that comes out of my work in Goethean phenomenology. One of the things, and if you've done any, what's more commonly called here in Australia Goethean observation, you should immediately recognise that what we see here in something like the yellow to orange to red is actually what in Goethean phenomenology is called intensification, and that you'll see that rather than that when working in Goethean observation working with different principles of it, is that the green of the plant intensifies towards yellow, orange, red into the flower. It's like the intensification of the life process in the plant, where in the green it's living much more, you might say, in the watery air elements, and it starts to, as it comes towards the seed and the flower, or the flower and the seed, it intensifies towards in its life forces. You see that it's like literally comes into a little bud, and then the bud expands out, and this is a whole kind of a metamorphic process, but it goes through this intensification in colour. And so this is something that I tend to bring into my paintings as well, that intensification through the yellow, the orange, into the red or even the blue. Or where you see a tension point, and anybody who's worked with me a bit on the dynamics of natural water flow and the metamorphic line will see that kind of principle of where you get a tension, that the colour deepens. It's not so obvious here in this, but quite a lot of my paintings on my website show this, including the ones that we just completed on the nature studies, that I will intensify the colour where there is an intensification in the dynamics of the movement. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So rather than, as you will, have any of you done, Ellen, have you done the Couleur de Bois?
Yes. Yeah. I've run through it. Isabel and I ran through it together over several years, but
yeah. So if you, for instance, it's not just Couleur de Bois, but that's the one I particularly think of because I've seen it's very particular if you work through her therapy books or you do one of their trainings, that they all the colours have very specific gestures, to the point where it also, in my personal opinion, starts to get a little bit kind of fixed.
Yes.
You know, that red will always be intense in the centre and not at the edges.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or yellow, or it might be, but not as much as yellow, which will always be at its deepest at the centre so it can radiate out. And blue will always, you know, shine inwards. That's really again looking at it from the soul level. You don't have to only paint on the soul level. So when you're, you know, if you want to bring it into more, and this is where we'll be going the other way with the black today, is that if you want to bring it more into the qualities of between of say painting with the plant, then working with colour in these ways with the intensification or following, or this kind of coming to the red edge. And I know I was going to show you a book. Hang on a second. I'm going to show you an illustration from this book on metamorphosis, because it looks backward, metamorphosis in nature and art. I was going to take a photo, but I haven't. But I'll hold this up and we'll just see. There. Here we go. Here's an exercise demonstrating exactly.
Oh, right. Wow.
Yeah. Exactly the process as I was just describing.
Yeah. Great.
So it says here, blend so that's an intensification of form with peripheral forces, the top one. Oh, they both are, yeah. So just taking from one step to the next. So you see how the red is acting very differently to what it is on when you're painting red as a kind of a soul colour.
Yeah, yeah.
So I find that can be a very effective to bring that kind of approach into when you're painting nature scenes, the plant, you know, or anything that's set in the landscape. Okay, so when we come to black, as you've probably read or you've heard, that in black represents the spiritual image of the lifeless, or of what has no life, or sometimes it's translated as the spiritual image of the dead. So how does that speak to you? Do you have any response to that?
For me, I've been contemplating it since doing the Faust process with the Goetheanum things, in the fact that this spiritual image of the lifeless or the dead, is this something that connects strongly with that dead thought process?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that for me just opened it all out. Dead is,
right.
You know,
okay.
It's opened it out to this process of, if you're coming into this, the way thoughts are a dying process, especially in this modern thinking process. So what is the spiritual image of the lifeless? What is something that might live behind or be an image of, even in something that has come to this point of no longer alive? Really interesting contemplation for me.
Yeah. Okay. It's something for us to all go away and ponder upon. Yep. Anyone else?
I've seen it more in terms of, I suppose, almost the necessity, black, or more in Jungian terms, I suppose, of the shadow side of everyone and everything, as almost a necessary prerequisite for actually being alive on the earth, which in and of itself is only an image of the spirit. And so you have to go through, you have to have blackness somehow in order to be separate, in order to be incarnate. And have rued that all my life, of just really been angry a lot of my life about the fact that it's an endurance, you know, it's an endurance. The blackness of life is something that clearly you choose at one level, but at another level, wow, why does it have to be so hard?
Okay, yeah. Yeah. That I was
For me,
can I just in my experience of image forming, the black seem to the black and white drawings that I've done and enjoy, and my understanding is the black and the white are in a dance together to bring the image forth, in the fact that there's no, as I said before, no hard outlines, but without the, you know, that they need each other to bring the image forth in an artistic way. So I see it as a, you know, that it's important, and yeah, alive. The white or the paper or whatever enlivens the black and so on.
Yeah, which points us to one of the exercises I'm going to ask you to try next over the in the next 2 weeks, is actually do this black, work with black, just with the black on the white paper. Yeah. But today we're going to look at the black in a different way. And in the colour lectures, Steiner talks about how, whereas in the green we have then it's this image of the nature world, in black we have the like it represents the carbon process. Yeah. The mineralization of the plant world into mineral, into carbon, yeah, that it presses it, that blackness that you find in carbon. So it's really, you get with, when we're going to look at what happens when we have lustre colors and we start, we've gone from image to adding color, lustre color, to bring the image into lustre. Now we're going to go back into image by putting black over the top of quite dark, and this is where it won't work if your colors are too light. But what happens when you bring the black over lustre color? So I'm going to now get my paints out and going to start looking at that, how to work with that. Now you can do this exercise with, if you've created black out of mixing other colors, but it actually does work better if you use an actual black, like I'm going to use the Cotman's Ivory Black. So I'm starting out, you can see, with a black at about back shade. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it over the one of the, not the blue to start with, because I think that will be, I'm going to do it with the, yeah, well, I'm not going to be anywhere, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start bringing it over the red and see what, it's just as last time we looked at what happens when I add a lustre color to the green. Now we're going to look at what happens when I bring the black to a lustre color. So what I'm suggesting is that you bring your black over a red, a yellow, or a blue, particularly the red or yellow at this point, rather than, if you're using your green painting, the green. And just do it in quite small areas first, not big. Don't do it with big pale grey veils, but just really over in quite small areas, so you can have for a while, first of all, just for 5-10 minutes, start to have an experience of what it's doing to the lustre colour. And you'll see that if you're watching, that what I'm doing is I am enhancing what's already there. I'm not or rather, I'm not, when I did over the red here, I stopped at the boundary of the red. So I didn't do the usual thing of veiling over or putting layers over each other in such a way as to create a third colour, but rather I'm using the black to intensify what is already there. So the only way I can really put it, can be really hard to find the language for this, is that I stop at the boundary of the red. I stop, or take a bit darker. I enhance the boundary of the blue here. So having said I wasn't going to do blue, now I am going to do. And then I just let that layer, that black, fade away. So you're not creating hard black boundaries through the black, but rather enhancing what the edges of form that are already there, no matter how pale they are. I hope everybody understands what the gist of what I'm saying. So I'm not going to completely cover all areas of luster colour or green. That's not the aim. We're not going to actually wipe out. We're just choosing particular places where we're literally enhancing. You might not think of it as an enhancement, but I'm using the term in a particular way. We're not enhancing the colour, we're changing the colour, but we're enhancing the structure or the form by adding the black. So what you can see if you're looking at mine, that I'm actually bringing in quite dark black, blending away the edges, but leaving it up against, lying side by side, you might say, or up against a luster colour. So it may go over one luster colour, but it's got another luster colour beside it at this point to bring in the contrast. The other thing is what I'm doing is, although I'm intensifying the edges of veils, at the ends, I'm also going through a process of I blend it. I don't make it dark all the way to the whole length of it, but allow it to fade away. So you start to bring in this sense of something that starts and builds and gets blacker towards the middle and then fades away. So you're bringing in these qualities of tension through the black. I'm just going to dry mine, so yes, you will hear the heater for a little bit. I'm just going to read you a little bit from a short excerpt from the colour lectures about black. Certainly we can easily find something in nature which is just as characteristically black as the plant is green. We only need to look at carbon. If we remember that carbon can also become quite clear and transparent, indeed a diamond, we will be able to understand this connection of blackness with carbon most clearly. For black is so characteristic of carbon that, were it not black but white and transparent, it would be a diamond. Black is so integral a part of carbon that the latter that is to say carbon, really owes its whole existence to blackness. Carbon really finds its own nature in the blackness, in darkness, in which it appears. Just as the plant has its image in green, so does the carbon have its image in black. I'm just going to go a little bit further with this. I don't know whether you might want to just listen to this and as a picture imagination. I'm not sure, perhaps you might find this a bit difficult. You might not care for this picture imagination depending on your relationship to black. But here we go. If you don't like it, of course, just shut your ears or go back to painting. But I want you to now submerge yourself in black. You are completely surrounded by black. In this black darkness, a physical being can do nothing. Life is driven out of the plant when it becomes carbon. Black shows itself alien to life, hostile to life. When plants are carbonized, they turn black. Life, then, can do nothing in blackness. And the soul? Our soul life deserts us when this awful blackness is within us. But the spirit flourishes. The spirit flourishes. The spirit can penetrate the blackness and insert itself within it. So if we, I don't know how you know, a lot of people, for very good reason, of course, do not like painting black or working with black charcoal. Sometimes it's used in therapy and people really do not like working with black or just cannot come into the darkness of the black. And of course, then you don't force people to do that. But it's that life dies into black, but the spirit flourishes.
Mm. I mean,
touches a bit on what I think.
Yeah.
I don't know, Denise, if you actually said it, but it's kind of like what you're saying. We need it, even though we don't like it.
It's funny though, isn't it? I find drawing with charcoal really satisfying. The blacker the better, really, because that's exactly what you do with this contrast between the black and the white. I mean, that's how you bring the whole picture to life, is the black. So I've never kind of thought about it as an alien thing, particularly in art. I mean,
in art, yeah.
Yeah.
That's just there about a soul state.
Yeah, I don't particularly want to end up in a black room contemplating a way out. I don't know.
But how are you finding it, bringing the black over your lustre colours?
Well, it's quite amazing. I thought it was going to be horrible, but it's not really. Yeah. It is a very interesting process. Yeah, I'm not sure how it's going to be when we do it with the incarnadine, because that's so pale. But yeah, with the green one. Yeah.
Anyone else? Denise?
It adds an element of mystery to it somehow. It's like it defines it more, but at the same time it's more impenetrable somehow. It's more mysterious.
Okay. Yeah.
Mine was a real feeling of intensifying that colour.
Yeah. Yep.
Especially the red.
Yeah.
For me, it was like discovering the true essence of the colour it was next to, if that makes sense. Or it's like it was vaguely there before and all very pleasant, but as soon as you...
Yeah, okay, so by pressing up against it, bringing that tension, the colour the luster colour can begin to shine.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
something that what you can start to do now is you can have just, you might say, I'll probably stay now with continuing to enhance the areas that I have added black to. I'm not going to add black into other places. I'm going to leave them in their green or their luster colour. I'm simply going to deepen the blackness. And then at a certain point, you might find that what you want to do, so for instance, where I've left red here, beside the black, is that I will go back and intensify the red. I will move between the tension of the blackness and the luster of the red.
Yeah, I was going to ask you whether we could go back and do
exactly.
more.
Yep.
I was a naughty girl and I just went to the red and the yellow and the blue.
Who was naughty?
Me.
Who's me?
Ellen.
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 Ellen. Okay. Oh well.
The red and the yellow and the black and the blue, just because I thought I have to.
Oh well, a girl's got to do what a girl's got to do. Yes.
Well, I was probably a little bit naughty too, because I started off putting the black over the red and green, and it was okay. And then I sort of took it into the blue because it was just boring otherwise. And somehow a dolphin emerged.
Okay, right.
and its beak thing was going up into the light, and it's cheered me up, is all I can say. No deep thoughts there.
Yeah.
But what I was also thinking was, I guess you would know, everyone would know the Rothko paintings, you know?
Yep.
And so, like, those are quite a different experience of colours, you know? And I think he does have a black one as well. And yes. And I don't know, like, this is quite different. It's actually a bit more nourishing or enlightening or something than trying to grapple with that other black that one sees so much, you know. So that's, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jessie. Well, let's go a little bit further, spend a little bit more time going further with this. So intensify the areas with black that you've already added black to, unless, of course, I mean, you know. And then as a balancing act, go to the luster colour and intensify that. So you're working between luster and image. Intensifying. So this is really an intensifying process. It's a very incarnating process. Brings you right into the... And of course, everybody can only work at the level of which they can bear. I must say, as soon as I start doing this, I just suddenly want to just go black, 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 black. I just want to get right into it. I'd be interested at some point, Svetlana, if you had any comment on this, since generally icons have quite a lot of black in them.
Yes. I'm starting to understand why an icon actually works. I didn't really understand why it works as it does as a dynamic image.
Yeah.
But now I'm starting to understand more through this process why or how the black bringing black into an image actually gives it that dynamic energy, that movement, that ability to actually go into the image.
Yeah. Yeah.
That depth, that I don't know, a connection, I guess.
Just a technical point that might interest you is that if I put black on quite dark, which I've just done, to blend away the edges, I don't wash my brush. I don't blend them using a watered down black. I literally just wipe off the excess black.
Okay.
And brush it back. Because otherwise what could happen is you can get in quite a bit of a mess if you start adding a lot of water into the black, depending on how dark you've brought it. It's a little technical point that might help you or it might not. So while I'm just going to let mine dry again, and what I'm going to do is start the exercise that I suggested that you might like to also try, depending on your time limitations in the next 2 weeks, is whereas I'm going to start with a blank page altogether, and I'm just going to bring surfaces of black. So I'm going to start that now, but of course you don't necessarily have anything stretched, I don't know, but also I'd like you to go further with this black exercise. And before we finish today, in about 15 minutes time, I just want to show you some examples of how black you can go without the painting disappearing into blackness, so to speak. There's always that sense, if on a white page, completely white blank page, in the first brush stroke, no matter what colour, it's like first brush stroke immediately breaks the whiteness. So it's that experience of when you bring in black as opposed to gentle yellow or warm red is what that black immediately does. As say Ruth and some of you who've worked with black and white already know. Of course, then the experience that one can have as soon as you bring the black onto white and start bringing a couple of black surfaces is that the white springs to life. The empty page, the nothing, the sort of that's nothing in particular, suddenly can start to take on a life on its own. And that will lead us into, in a fortnight's time, our final image colour, working with white, will give us a hint of how we might work with that. All right, so any questions, any comments?
Do you want us to do then this exercise with the incarnadine one?
Not unless you want to try it as an experiment. I'm not going to.
Okay.
I don't think it will really add to in any way to the incarnadine exercise. Because it doesn't have the lustre colour in it to
Okay.
So is there some more that we should do or that we can work towards with the incarnadine one?
No, and I think you'll see that there's really not much more you can do with it other than to try and get, you know, the only thing you could really do is start again and see if one could try in a different way. It's how does I get that fluctuating quality to it?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right.
Will we have a little look at what everybody's done, or is that too premature? Should we wait for Padlet?
I'm happy to. If anybody wants to show theirs, go ahead.
Ooh. Oh, we haven't got the...
Hang on, I'm just going to take the spotlight off myself so that people can see them. So, are you going to show something, Diane?
Yeah.
Good. Go on.
Got to be carried away with the...
You'll have to stand a little bit further back.
Oh. A bit big. Go on.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. So, having a big...
Can I see everybody else's?
Yeah. Ruth, hang on.
Yep.
Just a second. Hang on. I just got to take the spot. At the moment, we're not seeing anybody other than Diane because I spotlighted her. No, I've lost Diane. Diane, I can't find your... Oh, sorry. Yeah, there we go. All right, Ruth.
Yep. Yep.
There we go. It's a bit blurred.
Oh, I don't know how to make it less blurred.
No, there, that's better.
That better?
Yeah. Yeah, so this is your water lilies are getting a little bit carbonised.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. Yes.
It's interesting. It's actually making it looking a little bit Japanese or Chinese.
Yeah. That's precisely what I had in mind, that quality that you get in Japanese painting. So, yeah, look, it's quite interesting what it does. Even technically, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Like the rest of it. Mm.
All right. So, Francoise.
Yeah.
Okay. So we really can see how, especially in this one and Diane's, how much structure or composition it really starts to become intensified. So it's no longer just a colour experience, is it? It's a very, you know, we start to get a real feeling of I am forming and shaping this, almost more like a sculptor than a painter now. Are you going to show us your dolphin, Jessie?
Yes, let's see the dolphin cheer us all up.
Yeah.
I could, but honestly, it's like a child's painting.
He's jumping. That's big. That's great.
That's gorgeous.
Just don't lose your blue.
Oh,
So what I want to do now is just show you a few examples of old paintings of mine of different stages of where I brought in the black and where it went to. So I've got 4 here. Hopefully you will see. Tell me if you're seeing it.
Oh,
Yeah.
So that's just with a little bit of black.
Yeah.
More black.
Wow.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So you see, there's actually only the green and the red and the black.
Yep.
So that is actually carmine and viridian.
Yep.
See how I've used this Goethean principle of intensification very strongly without it becoming very, very black.
Yep.
So, and then here's one where I've used not such hard edges with the black, but more black, and it's over viridian.
Oh, there is viridian.
Violet.
All right. Yep.
Yeah. So instead of having the very sharp, crisp, intense, small areas of intensification, it's the whole mood becomes blacker. And then finally we get to something, I've got a series of a couple of ones like this where there's no surface that doesn't have black on. So that is actually a yellow, lemon yellow. Yeah, or not, no, it must have been the cadmium yellow, not lemon. That's cadmium yellow and rose madder and viridian.
Wow.
And you see what many layers of black brushed over them.
Yep.
What's happened to what has happened to them? What quality? They've gone from luster to image.
Yeah.
But in this carbonizing process, they've become more the mineral colours.
Yeah, they are. That's right.
Yeah, and you can see how they take on. You can imagine what that carmine rose madder looks like. Very soft pink, very commonly used in therapeutic work. It's a gentle, warming colour, and the colour that's often used, painted in kindergartens and Steiner schools. But here, when we add the black to it, it takes on a very different nature. And likewise, the yellow, and much more mineralised.
But it's not without life. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But I can tell you there are many, many layers of black on that compared to, say, that one.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
Where the black has just been in very, very specific areas. And there's the carmine and the yellow. Well, that's gold, that one.
Yeah.
Been left virtually untouched. But I've done what I suggested, what we were doing today is I've intensified the yellow where it meets the black. Actually, that's indigo, not black. But I've taken the same principle as the indigo. So there's the black, black, black. So you see, that would have started in just soft layers of the pink and the yellow, and then brought in some indigo surfaces, and then gradually this going through this from an unformed to a forming, but be using this intensification process of this Goethean principle of bringing in intensification to where in the dynamics of the movement. So you see right at the point of the where the angle meets is the deepest black. Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
There. Very much done that to enhance the picture of. This is actually Parsifal, it's called. On your horse,
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Going for, you know, the curve of the rump, or where it meets the ground, or the top of the head, or the flow of the cloak. So you see, but what does happen is that you usually find that you have to work. I mean, what I've got here with the one beside me, what I've done today, it's got to go through a lot of stages before it gets to that. You've actually got to add quite a lot of black and more luster colour to start to get it to really shine like that. So when you might ask yourself, well, how long do I work on this like this?
Yeah.
Unlike the incarnadine or the green, you can actually keep working in this intensification process quite a long time. However, I just from a technical perspective, I will warn you that if you're using smooth hot pressed paper, you won't be able to go for as long as you would if you're using, as I do, Archer's. Well, I use cold pressed or even the rough surface. So the more textured the surface, and also I do use 100% cotton. The longer you can work on it. So one of the reasons why I decided to add black to this is because I realised I started painting on paper that wasn't actually going to last. It was cheaper paper, so I think I usually use capastels. So I thought, oh, well, I might as well just keep going and use this as a demonstration piece. Okay, so that...
Fantastic, thank you.
Thanks again, Fiona.
Yeah, so I will see you in a fortnight's time.
Okay.
Unless I won't see you in a fortnight's time.
Sorry, Fiona, can we just recap? The homework was to do the black veils on the white and bring that into balance?
Yeah.
Right.
It was to continue with this, to take it further as far as you can go into the black veils, to really get that sense of the carbonisation or the mineralisation of your lustre colours. So don't forget to intensify the bits of lustre colour as you go, so that you've got that tension. They make each other shine more. But you could also then start where you just put black. Only work with black on white.
Yep. Okay. Oh, brilliant.
Okay.
We enjoyed that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Fiona.